Today's video is being done in June 2020, and it's a bit late because normally we would try and do something for the state of the township with our fiscal year starting in April, but COVID-19 has kind of caused everything to shift a while, so we're doing it now in June, and we want to give you, the residents, an opportunity, if you don't already know, and much of this you may already know if you've been here, kind of the concept behind what the Township Board has been doing in the management of the township, and not only today and up to today, but what we see going forward for the township. And we think this helps give you a better understanding of what's actually happening here. And to that end, I want to point to the map that you've probably all seen of the township here. And that map has really got this emphasizing the value of why we all moved out here. If you look at it, all those green areas on there are designating recreational area. Most everybody I've ever talked to that's moved out here has done it because they want to be part of that up north feel that we have up here, of being in the country yet close enough to the city for other activities. That rural feeling has been paramount in what we do to maintain the township. And so when you look at the map of the community, you can see why. We have huge tracts of recreational property. In fact, Oakland County has no community with more DNR property in it than Groveland Township. So all those open spaces we have, the hunting area, the trails and so forth, is all part of why we all moved out here. And we understand that, and it's been very clear. I did the first township master plan back in the late 70s, early 80s. And every plan I've done since then, to the one that's coming out in a couple more weeks, had that same value in it, preserve that rural up north quality. And it doesn't just happen. It's done through the master plan process and the zoning and mapping ordinances that you put in place. That is what really causes the township to stay the way it is right now, even though there may be growth all around us. And so the very fact that you can look at this map, and it helps emphasize why we all moved out here, the real issue is it's kind of a double-headed coin. It's great because it preserves the quality of life we all wanted, low density, large lots, but on the flip side, over 40% of the township is virtually undevelopable. If we had to run the township on the money we get from the state of Michigan with something they call PILT, payment in lieu of taxes, we run out of money for running the township in about 3 or 4 days. So it's great for the environment we all love, but it makes it hard to run a community that's got the same geographic footprint as all the other townships down here, 36 square miles, with a very tiny tax base. This brings us to what is the philosophy involved in running this township. When I first came here and did the first budget, I realized when we got all done with the clerk that was here at the time, Best Steele, that we had about 20 grand extra in our budget. And I looked at her and said, you mean to tell me if we didn't have the funds from the cable company that we get from the franchise agreement, which at that time were about 20 grand, we would have no extra money in the budget at all? And she looked at me and said, I guess I never thought of it that way, Bob, but you're right. So I realized early on that we needed some funds to be able to do improvements to the township for everybody. But as you probably realized, we're very opposed to adding taxes to everybody. And so how do we come up with a plan to generate money for the township? Well, I'll tell you what we've done. We've done some innovative things. When we won the property that's referred to as the old Stablex site at Grange Hall and I-75 exit 101, we took a piece of property that for many years the township had after we won the court case, but it had generated $0 for the township. Over the last 20-some years, what we've done is a number of projects we put together on it to generate revenue for the township. But it's revenue that is not always predictable from year to year and doesn't go on indefinitely like a tax does. We know this, so we do the same thing in this township that you and I probably do at home every day. You decide you need a new roof on your house or a new car, or you want to take a family vacation. You put money away in what you might call a rainy day fund. And when you get enough, you get that either new car or roof or whatever it is you were looking for. In the township's case, we put the money in something called an infrastructure fund. And we wait till we have enough money to actually pay for what it is we want to do. That is the reason why your community is debt-free and fully funded on every obligation it has. We've worked at that very diligently. And that extra resource that comes in is what allows us to do specific projects without going to the taxpayers. So we'll take a look at what we've done over the years to kind of get us to where we are now. We know everybody wants some improvements. We built Station 2, no tax increases. We paid for the ISO insurance study to get our insurance premiums down. We paid for the study and the hydrant wells that are put around the township, no taxes for that. We've done more road improvements in this township in the last 24 years than have ever been done in the township's entire history. We've repaved Grange Hall Road twice, we've repaved part of Groveland Road twice, we've extended the pavement on Groveland Road, we did a first section of Oak Hill Road, and in 2021 we're doing all of Barron Road, which is about a $5.5 million project. The reason we can do those projects is because we have leveraged the money we take off of that property. The property that we're talking about, the old Stablex site, now generates, between the cumulative projects we put on it, more revenue for this township to do improvements on than 100% of its tax base. So if you kind of think about it, what would we be able to do if we didn't have those projects we put in place over the years? We would have no money to work on anything. The chore for the township has been, how do we get everybody on the board focused to figure out what do we do? Some of those projects are going to taper off. The amount of money they spin off in a given year varies, sometimes very widely, from one year to the next. And we don't control some of them for their ultimate dispersal and when they're going to be completely finished. For example, the cell site that's on that property can change from year to year, and we have very little ability to impact the subsequent leases on it. We have virtually none. Okay? The property that's being mined, when it's finished, will no longer be paying the mining lease on it. The property that was sold to Barry Bass for Bedrock for his future recycling facility behind Consumers Power's building there on Dixie Highway will eventually be paid off, and that money will stop. We have to figure out in the township, how do we replace those revenue sources going forward on a more perpetual basis so that we can still continue to do things like road improvements, fire hydrants, fire station building, that type of thing. And that's where we decided, as we take care of moving into the future, we need to figure out how to get a spark plug out here to help stimulate what we want to have happen, and how do we leverage it for the township. I worked with the DNR and the Oakland County Parks Department for 4 years to secure the 2 old mining pits around Mount Holly and turn them into the first and only ORV park in all of Oakland County. We know that when that goes in, it doesn't generate tax dollars for us, but it elevates the value of the properties around it. People out here like to do the recreational facilities we have. They're going to love that ORV park. We know they like the mountain bike trail on the other side of the viaduct on I-75. We know they like going to the 4-H campgrounds. They like going skiing at Mount Holly. We want to leverage all of those recreational, family-oriented facilities so that the businesses that support them to make them better will use that area on Dixie and Grange Hall and I-75. And if we keep the business district there, we don't disrupt the quality of life for all of us living in the rest of the township, but it brings in a perpetual tax base for us. But there's another way to get money for it. And so one of the things I've done is we've decided what that plan's going to be going forward and been working on it all along. Today with me is Jim Christopher, who is one of the trustees on the township board, and I want to thank Jim for joining us today. And Jim was put on the board because he has a very specific resume and set of skills that we're going to need for that property. And what I'd like to do is let Jim first tell you a little bit about himself and why he's here, and secondly, what our plan is for that property. So, Jim, if I could you kind of fill everybody in?
Thanks, Bob. I've been lucky enough in my career to learn construction and development from a laborer up to a senior management position. And those skills are going to generalize and be very, very much needed as the township moves forward, as Bob said, in the creation of an enduring revenue stream for our infrastructure and other projects as we need it. I want to share with everybody a parallel that I think will make sense to everybody of our vision or our strategic plan for the property that we have adjacent to the ORV park. In the Pontiac area, a developer created a racetrack, and around the racetrack are a number of condominiums. And the location is close to high-income areas where I would say, in general terms, a number of people have their man caves now there. And they, as from a developer standpoint, have created a very successful model. So the model is I have a racetrack, I have these garages to support, I had the garages in support of the racetrack. Those garages have been sold to corporate clients, have been sold to individuals. They come out, they can test their vehicles, they have races from time to time, they have track days time to time, just for the sheer enjoyment of the vehicles. Now the parallel is this: we don't have to build a racetrack. The state and the county have done that for us. But we can certainly build garages, we can certainly build car washes. There are a number of possibilities there that we can meld into an ongoing income stream for the township. In addition to that, the ORV park, as Bob hinted, is going to create an impetus for people to invest their businesses in support, the converse rather, that the ORV park will support their businesses. So we see an enormous opportunity there for us to have an ongoing and enduring revenue stream, primarily based on rental income. Other things may avail itself over time. Corporations may come in and say, listen, we want to do something bigger. But the opportunity is there, and it's very, very positive for the township.
If I can add, one of the things that we did, we kind of beta tested a concept we think has particular application for us there. Many of you know what we refer to as the MABUS, or the Task Force 1 building, the big blue building behind old Nick's farm, that houses all of the disaster backup equipment for the state of Michigan. That was really a coup for our township to be able to get that facility. For one, it keeps it close for our own fire department and community's use. But secondly, we developed that in conjunction with a developer, in this case, Mr. Barry Bass from Bedrock, a local business. He built the building for MABUS, and we supplied the property that it sits on, a couple of acres there. And the way it's set up is, the people that are in that building never own that building. They literally lease it on a year-to-year basis. And the big part of the rent goes to the developer to cover his cost of developing roughly $1 million building for them there. And the balance of the rent that goes in there comes to the township for renting the acreage underneath it. The beauty of it is, no matter what happens, that building's never going away and not going to be out of our control. The township owns the property it sits on, and we're never going to sell it. It provides a perpetual revenue stream for us going forward. And we think this concept, which is used in many large developments, of land leasing it rather than selling it to them, is exactly what the township needs to get a predictable revenue source long term. And so you can see these facilities management concepts that Jim is talking about are what we need to make sure we execute correctly so that we leverage that for the maximum benefit. We'll not only get the value of the taxable value on the facilities that get built on it, because there'll be new businesses, but we will be getting a protracted revenue stream on the land that's leased underneath it, and we will maintain control so that what goes in there is consistent with what you, the residents, have outlined in the master plan process. That's what we think the beauty is for us long term. We need both the revenue from the tax base and the land lease, if we can, to maximize our impact on it. Now, when we get done with this, I think you can see that there's a pretty good coherent plan to kind of segue us from where we started with no revenue to sporadic amounts of revenue that we put in an infrastructure fund so that we don't spend the money ahead of our headlights, so to speak, and then to move it into a basis where we have a continuing revenue stream for decades to come. This is what we think is the secret to keeping our taxes down. And if you've ever wondered, if you looked, you can look at a map and see that the communities that are adjacent to us, to the east is Brandon Township. Our taxes are only about, I jotted it down here, let me take a quick look for you. Our taxes on that, I think, are about 42% of what their township taxes are. If you go to the south in Springfield, our taxes are about 60% of what theirs are. And if you go to the west in Holly Township, our taxes are about only 80%. So within us and our adjacent neighbors, our taxes for operating the township functions are the lowest in the area. In fact, with the recent reduction that we did on our operating millage, it is now the lowest operating township millage in the entire area around here. It's that approach that I think makes it possible for us to live out here, use the projects we've done in the past to be able to do things like the natural gas project that lowered the cost of living, the dumpster service in conjunction with Bedrock Enterprises so that you can get rid of your trash all year long without a fee, the No Haz Consortium, which we were an original founding member of, so you can get rid of your hazardous materials safely for a fraction of the cost. Those are the things we've done in the meantime to keep costs down and provide better cost of living with no tax increases. And this concept is what's going to take us into the future, we feel, to meet those same needs of continuous improvement without ever having to raise the taxes. So I just want everybody to have a pretty good basic understanding of where we've been, what we've done, and where we're going. If you have any questions on this or any other issues, don't hesitate for a moment to call the township office. We're happy to discuss them with you. But before we break today, I need to give you one other informational bit of status I think you need. For those of you who don't know, the primary election is on August the 4th, and typically we have never suggested in this video channel how people have to vote, but we do ask that you exercise your constitutional right and make sure you vote on August the 4th. The reason we want to make a specific effort for today is, for those of you who don't know, the fire millage, which operates the fire department, expired normally at the end of its term on December the 31st, 1919. We need to renew the fire millage in order to still have a fire department. So the renewal request for the fire millage at the reduced rate that we had in 2019, 2019, is what's on the millage ballot for August the 4th in the primary. And that's the only time it's going to be voted on. It will not be in the November ballot. It's only on the August 4th primary. So we just want to make sure you know that you have to decide what you want to do to either approve or deny the fire millage on August the 4th. Obviously, if you deny it, there would be no money for fire or EMS service. If you approve it, it will renew it at its reduced rate from last year and being billed at a slightly lower rate for this year. And we just want to make sure you exercise your constitutional right to express your vote on August the 4th for that important issue. So until we have another video, Groveland, I hope you'll all have a great day. Try to stay safe and not get the COVID-19 disease. The township's pretty much back to open now, and we are issuing building permits and so forth. And after the June 15th date, we'll go back to being open on Wednesday evenings. So if you can't get in during the day, you can come in on that one evening at your convenience. Have a great day. Thank you. One other item that I probably should mention, I know some people have asked about this. As you know, we're planning to replace Fire Station 1 on Dixie Highway, which is I think 60 or 70 years old and extremely expensive to operate. To get that out of our operation and into the private sector and on the tax rolls, and use our opportunity to move the new fire station across the street over by the Task Force 1 building. That project is going back on schedule now that we've kind of gotten past this COVID issue. And Chief Mason and I have finalized what we think the final floor plan is for both the fire station occupation and of course moving our MSP detachment over there with them at the same time. As soon as we get the drawings back from the architect, a local architect here in the township, and we have a rendering for you, we'll try and make that information available both on this channel and through the Citizen newspaper so you can see what it's going to look like. And we'll be running it up to the folks up in Lansing to see if we can get final approval, send it out for our bids, and then hopefully get ground broken on that process as well this year. So I just thought you might want to know the status of that as well. Thank you.